It's the McShay Show, presented by FanDuel. The NFL Draft is right around the corner, and FanDuel is the best place to get in on all the action. The app is safe, secure, and easy to use. FanDuel always has exclusive offers. When you win, you'll get paid instantly. And FanDuel has a lot of ways to bet the draft, with loads more coming between now and the first pick. So download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today and make every moment more during the NFL Draft. The Ringer is committed to responsible gaming. Please visit rg-help.com to learn more about resources and helplines available. And listen to the end of this episode for additional details. Must be 21 and older and present in select states. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Free agency has begun and quarterbacks continue to be on the move. How's it going to affect the landscape of this year's NFL draft and the quarterback position? Plus, my first top 100 in 2 years, Muench. It's official. It's out in the newsletter. It's here on the McShay Show. Just 42 days until the NFL draft. Muench, you good?
I'm good, man.
All right, let's roll that music, baby. Muench, I got off the comment section for a long time at my previous place of employment, okay? It was a toxic place, wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
I've gotten back on. I feel like it's a healthier environment. People have constructive criticism. They want to talk ball. It's great. I enjoy it. Yeah, there's some knuckleheads out there, but where in life aren't there some knuckleheads, right? I'm surrounded by them.
You got thick skin.
I say all this because I noticed I got some backlash last week or last show. Too much about the schedule, McShay. Cut it out with the schedule. We got it. We'll tune in, whatever. Stop with the schedule. I got Marissa in one ear. I got Conor in the other ear. We're talking about laying out the next 6 weeks. And you're right. When you're right, you're right. And I'm admitting my fault. I won't do it anymore. So no more about the schedule. The mock draft 2.0 drops next Thursday, by the way. No more about the
just
schedule.
Sneak that one in.
Yes. We got a top 100 I just mentioned. First time in 2 years I've been able to drop it. I'm excited to. We just dropped it in the newsletter. If you want to go see the entire top 100, and by the way, Muench, this is not humble. It's just a brag.
Here we go.
4 years in a row I've won the top 100 on thehuddlereport.com. Just go
You're
check
good
it
at
out.
this, man. You are good
85,
at this.
86, 86, and 86 the last 4 years. Now, Muench will tell you I'm a sellout. I'll counter with I'm just a competitor. We can have that conversation another time. But listen, whether it's the most accurate or it's not, this is a good place to come find your top 100 if you want to figure out who the players are that are going to come off the board. And it'll probably be within have at least 85 of them, I'd like to think, that are going to wind up getting drafted. So this is the first version in the newsletter. Please go Google it. The McShay Report. Subscribe to it. Chip in $4. You get it through this draft. If you want to double down for $36, you can get it for the rest of the year.
Comment. Tell him where he's wrong. Let him know where he's wrong.
That's all the housekeeping. I promise no more calendar, no more schedule. Mock Draft 2.0 drops next week on Thursday. Muench, let's see if you beg for us a little bit here, please, before we get started.
I said I was going to work on this. I have not. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you like us, if you don't like us, just either way, just hit those buttons for us. We really appreciate it.
There you go. And we do appreciate your support. Let's get to it, man. I mean, quarterback movement is the story. There's a lot of big players. And quite frankly, in some situations, positional players are going to wind up being a bigger factor in the big picture of the NFL in 2026, right? Or 2020, in this upcoming season, 2025. However, the quarterbacks, for our purposes, it's fascinating where these quarterbacks have landed, right? And you start to look at, you get Geno going to Vegas,
right?
Sam in Seattle, Sam Darnold in Seattle, Justin Fields to the Jets, Daniel Jones to the Colts. That's an interesting situation, right?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that one up.
Yeah, there's still 3 dominoes to fall, maybe 4 when it's all said and done. Aaron Rodgers. Get to that in a second. Kirk Cousins. Russell Wilson. And I got a 4th one for you. Talked to a couple people in the last couple days. Derek Carr may not be cemented in New Orleans. I'm not going to get into all the minutia of it, but after June 1st, he may become a very interesting option for a team that is trying to contend, trying to win games, and doesn't get the quarterback that they want in free agency and doesn't get the quarterback that they want in the draft. So as a kind of a stopgap 2-year plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are 4 names that are still kind of front and center. Huge names, names, bigger names than they are great players at this point.
At this point in their careers, yep, I totally agree.
Okay. Let's work backwards here in terms of the draft order. Steelers pick at 21. They've been active in free agency, including DK Metcalf, and most recently on Wednesday. And full transparency, we're always going to be fully transparent. And it's important for you to know this. If you're consuming this on Thursday morning when this show airs, we are taping on Wednesday night. So if something changes in free agency, just consider that your warning. That we from 6:30 Eastern p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday night, if something happens from that point on, we obviously we're behind the sticks on that. But I look at the Steelers situation, active in free agency. They bring in on Wednesday Darius Slay, a cornerback.
Mm-hmm.
That was a need for the Steelers, right?
Yep.
We know that they're in the market early in the draft for a corner, and that doesn't take them out of the market because Slay now comes in, provides an upgrade, I believe, at the cornerback position, provided he stays healthy,
mm-hmm.
and then allows them, maybe not in the first round, to go draft a corner that they can develop for the future. Maybe it is still in the first round, right? But they're trying to win now. That's obvious. They don't have a quarterback.
No.
And Aaron Rodgers, in such typical Aaron Rodgers and I, like, we got a long history dating back to the draft year, and he thinks I'm an idiot, and I don't think he's that great a guy. Period.
Yeah, he's not wrong about everything, though.
But Aaron Rodgers is the only one that makes sense to me, or makes the most sense, I should say.
Agreed.
It makes sense because I truly believe the product that we saw last year on the field was in large part due to the Achilles injury he was coming off of the year before. We saw it with Kirk Cousins too. They weren't the same guy. Now, age is obviously a factor in that, and they're never going to be what they were in their prime, is my guess, right? It's only human nature. But Aaron Rodgers, if he's able to make a jump from what we saw last year and be somewhere between what we saw on the field last year and what he was, winning MVPs just a few years back, he would give, of what is remaining out there, including the draft, he gives the Steelers the best chance to make a legitimate run. They won a decent amount of games last year. Didn't get great quarterback play. Got pretty good quarterback play for a few games. That was about it. Here's an interesting scenario I want to and I also want to mention this with Aaron Rodgers. There's whispers about Minnesota, which I keep hearing Minnesota with these other quarterbacks, and I keep wondering, is J.J. McCarthy not as far along in his recovery and or development as kind of the messaging that's coming out of Minnesota? But you hear a little bit about Minnesota recently. In the last 24 hours, all of a sudden it's kind of popped up.
Mm-hmm.
You hear the Giants. It's for about 48 hours, it was either the Giants or the Steelers, and now we're hearing a little bit about Minnesota. So that's Aaron Rodgers. And once that domino falls, or maybe before it, we could find out about Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson. The fascinating part with the Aaron Rodgers situation as it pertains to the Steelers is they want to win now. He fits it. They're in a situation where, what do they got on their roster? A quarterback. So if it's not him, then are they scrambling back? And how long can they afford to wait?
Right.
Because if it's not Aaron, then they're going to want to bring in Kirk or Russell.
Right.
Or not Russell. It was just Kirk. or maybe it's June 1st with a guy like Derek Carr, like I was saying. But the timing of it's interesting. And I was just watching a show and Schefter's on there, and he's railing Aaron Rodgers. Schefter's a really good guy, damn good guy, one of the best guys I've worked with. Human beings, cares about people, good person. He and Aaron have a beef.
Stunned. I'm stunned that Aaron has a beef with someone.
So that's a little backdrop there. But even Schefter, who doesn't get involved in a lot of this nonsense, is like, come on, like it's. I think he compared it to lunch. Like, what are you going to wait 4 days to decide what you want for lunch? It's simple. There's a lot of veterans making a lot of tough decisions. They make them quickly. Why is Aaron different? I'll tell you why Aaron's different. You want to know why? Because there's too much news in the cycle right now. Aaron's news has to be the only thing in the cycle. So he's going to wait for that. Promise you.
Yeah.
He'll tell you differently. I'm sure he'll have a great explanation for it. And he won't mention me by name or anyone else by name or Schefter by name, but he'll react to that because he watches everything.
Right.
Even though he'll tell you he doesn't. So that's that. But Aaron Rodgers gives them the best chance to make a run if he's playing at a higher level. I also heard this nugget. And it's not like that big of news, and it's out there, but it's just interesting the timing of it. For me personally, just like, and also in news, Tyler Shuck, my guy, who I've got rated a lot higher than most people, and we'll get to that in the top 100. Tyler Shuck was in for an interview this week. Teams, I can't stand, and anyone in and around the league can't stand whatever was the top 30 visits. So here's how it works, just in case you don't know, and I'll do this quickly. NFL teams have an opportunity to go to the player's facility within, I think it's 30 miles of where they played college ball or where they grew up. They can bring their offensive coordinator, their quarterback coach. If it's a different position, they'll bring those guys accordingly, and they can work them out, put in some installs, test them on what they want to do, get a good feel. Much better environment for evaluation and for getting to know the person and how they process and all those things than a pro day or a combine workout. Okay. But also as part of this pre-draft process, you get 30 players that you get to pick. It's not your top 30. We talked to Eric DaCosta. I thought it was fascinating.
Right.
Said if you get information on a player coming in as one of the top 30, there's a really good chance if we really like him and it's one of the high profile players, we're not bringing that guy in.
Right.
And so we're using it to get information on that individual who could be playing somewhere else, or we're bringing in mid round, late round, undrafted free agent guys that like good luck figuring out what we're going to do because we don't even know if they're going to be on the board.
Right. You told the story about Lamar coming in for a visit, and Lamar didn't have an agent, so it didn't get leaked. And then a reporter called and said, "We heard Lamar was in the building, and I don't know what you're talking about. You can't confirm that. Good luck."
You can report it, but you could also be reporting something
you
false
might be
information.
Wrong. Right. I thought that was a great story about Lamar.
So when Shuck comes in, it's one of 30 players that they chose to bring in. I have never, for a minute during a couple plus decades of doing this, put an awful lot of stock into this. Some people are obsessed with it. I think it's fool's gold. I'd much rather spend my time evaluating players and talking to people about what their thoughts are inside the league. But it brings me to this, Muench. It would make sense. Pittsburgh's sitting there at 21, right? In the first round. Aaron Rodgers is, I believe, from everything I'm told, he wants to play 2 more years. You can only really count on one at this point in his career. So this would be let's win now, but also let's take this opportunity, whether it's in the first round or the second round, to draft a quarterback that we can develop. So when Aaron's done, or if it's a different veteran is done, we can have them ready to go and be our backup plan. Jackson Dart's going in the first round, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Tyler Shuck, based off of my information, is very likely to go in round 2.
Okay.
But I do think it's interesting they're picking at 21. Would that mean a move back? Would that, if they fall in love with Tyler Shuck, could it be there? Or is it move up from where they're picking? They pick at 52 overall in the second round. I don't think at this point Tyler Shuck's going to be on the board at 52. I really don't. I've gotten pretty decent at separating my bias and my evaluation of a player, not bias, my opinion of a player and where I rank them from that of what I'm being told in the league. So I'm hearing somewhere in that early second round range for Tyler Shuck. We'll see. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that would not surprise me on that range. I mean, if they sign Aaron Rodgers, they still need to go get another quarterback. I mean, you need a quarterback in the future. This guy's only going to be there for 2 years tops. You don't know what you're getting. He wasn't the same player last year. He may never be the same player again. We've already talked about that locker room. Hell, you got Pickens and Metcalf and now Rodgers. There's a lot of moving pieces there. You bring in Aaron Rodgers, I agree with you. Best chance to win. You still have to get another quarterback. And I think you have to get one that you don't want to play early, but you could play early. So I think you're doing it in the first or the second round. Listen, 21 is early for Shuck for me. I think it might be early for Dart for me. But if you love one of them and you can get one of them, then you try to trade back. But if you get jammed up, take the quarterback if you love the quarterback. I mean, we always say that. And let me go on afterwards and say, man, I don't love the pick. It's a little bit of a reach there. Who cares? If he ends up working out, then you did the right thing. We did this with Penix in Atlanta. And again, the jury is still out. If Penix works out in Atlanta, we all look bad and they look great. And it didn't matter what happened that night. We're all giving them a hard time about it because in the end, they got their quarterback.
Yeah, I didn't absolutely hate it. I just didn't have a place to voice it. I didn't hate the Penix decision.
I didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah, I know. But again, let's keep it moving forward. So I started at 21 because it kind of fit into like the domino of these free agents. So if it is Pittsburgh, then these other teams we're about to get to, Tennessee at 1, Cleveland at 2, Giants at 3, he's off the board. And again, I want to make it perfectly clear. Bringing in Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins should have nothing to do with whether you're drafting a quarterback. However, it could be an indicator of we're kicking the can down the road a year. Because we got Garrett Nussmeier and some other guys that are intriguing next year that we think could be better than this year's quarterback class outside of Cam Ward.
Pittsburgh doesn't think like that, though, right? Pittsburgh doesn't think that we're gonna be in a position to draft a Nussmeier in a year. They're thinking we're going to be competitive no matter what. So
Pittsburgh's a different conversation. Pittsburgh's picking at 21 for a reason, and Tennessee, Cleveland, and the Giants are picking at 1, 2, 3 respectively for a very different reason, right? So moving past the Steelers situation, I think it's important now we get into 1, 2, and 3 in the board. Because if it's not Pittsburgh and it's not this late surge from Minnesota, it's the New York Giants for Aaron Rodgers. The tough spot the Giants are in, and I promise we'll tie this all together, 1, 2, 3, and get into where we think the quarterbacks are going. But the tough spot that the Giants are in is as much as I love Brian Daboll, and I'll continue to express my appreciation for him developing quarterbacks and his ability to coach. He's on a short leash.
Yeah.
And so is Joe Shane, the general manager. They have to feel a little fortunate. They got another year opportunity to be the head men for the New York Giants. That affects them, though, because it is a short leash. And if you're talking to a guy like Kirk Cousins, who thinks he's got 2 years left, Russell Wilson, who thinks he's got 2 years left, Aaron Rodgers, who thinks he's got 2 years left, and they're looking at the management, if you will, in this corporation and saying, well, I don't know if they're going to be around the year after. And what if, And I've already moved enough. I don't want to make another move after 1 year to try to play my final year somewhere else. So that seems like it is affecting the Giants with all of this. And maybe it hasn't been a massive hurdle, and maybe that wasn't the only reason that Stafford wound up going back to the Rams. But New York all chips in on Stafford, and he turned it down to go back to be with the Rams. So with that in mind, Cleveland at 2, they already brought in Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, they got Kenny Pickett, man. They're good.
Exactly. But it was a curious decision because they're still very aggressively as far as reports are. I shouldn't
You know
say
what it tells me?
I keep hearing their name come up with Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins is what
You know what it tells
I
me?
can tell you. What?
I feel like that says, building off our conversation the other day, it feels like they really want Cam Ward and they are scared that Cam Ward's going to go number 1 to Tennessee. And they want to have that contingency plan where we have Kenny Pickett here. If everything goes to hell and we don't love Shedeur as much as maybe other people do, and Cam Ward's gone and we're picking at 2, we at least have a quarterback plan in place.
Bingo.
Right.
And that's what the 5 minutes I just went on with this roller coaster ride through all the free agent quarterbacks, where they could go, where they could land. And I purposely went from back to front of the line, 21 to 3 to 2, and now to 1.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of tea leaves to be read in what's going on here. I truly do. Just like the Raiders got their guy in a 34 turning 35-year-old Geno Smith, and the Jets got their guy, whether you believe in him or not, Justin Fields. That signaled to me, in conjunction with the information that I shared on this show last week, that Shedeur is not beloved the way that people think. And the vast majority of it is because of the tape.
Yeah.
And I find it interesting. I find it really interesting too, by the way. There was no one talking about Shedeur Sanders and maybe falling a little bit in the draft in Indianapolis. No one on NFL Network, no one on ESPN, no one in the other major networks. No one was talking. The thing I heard most about Shedeur Sanders was he smiled a lot when he was in the on-field drills. And then we came out last week and we shared information about teams I was talking to. And now it's this uproar.
Right.
About Shedeur Sanders falling. Backlash.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing this for credit, but I'm doing this because I want to explain something. Those conversations, as I very clearly laid out, both in the newsletter, the McShay Report, Google it, subscribe, please. As I very clearly laid out in the newsletter, and I very clearly laid out on this show, those conversations were of, yeah, it was surprising. Maybe shouldn't have been surprising because we've known for months. Coach Prime has said that Shedeur he's going to play a part in it. There's certain organizations and places we don't want him to go. Excuse me. But I can tell you, Todd, in these conversations, I can tell you, Todd, that, it wasn't the most professional interview. The interview was different than the other interviews, like dozens of other players who came in, like their life and their career and everything was on the line with urgency and caring a lot about what we thought of him. He just didn't seem to care all that much. It was kind of laissez-faire, relax, chill. Wasn't disrespectful, not even arrogant. Those words weren't used. So when I hear people now reporting what they heard in the report from what they heard from us, and then defending it, and this whole uproar is coming. Those conversations were 20-80, 20% being, that was surprising. I was surprised that he didn't have more of a professional approach in those meetings. The 80% was the Caleb Williams without the arm and without the athleticism stuff. Mm-hmm. The tape doesn't line up with what people kind of were hoping for as general managers and coaches get involved in this process. And so they like him a lot. And again, none of this matters because I haven't heard anything about the New York Giants, who are struggling to get a veteran quarterback in and who have two guys at the head of that organization that need to save their job. And what better way historically in the NFL or even in college football to save your job as a head coach and a general manager than to bring in a young, promising quarterback who shows promise in his first year, right? There's no better way.
No.
So again, none of this will matter if he's a New York Giant. 35 minutes into the NFL draft broadcast, April 24th, Thursday night. But if he doesn't go to the Giants at 3, he's still available when the Patriots come on the clock at 4. It's going to be an interesting night for Shedeur because he's not going 4 to New England. He's not going 5 to Jacksonville. He's not going 6 to the New York Jets. He's very likely not going, according to what I'm understanding, to the Raiders at 7. Now we get to 9. That's a long time waiting for the face of this NFL draft. And his dad, the face of college football, to be waiting, pick 9. And I'm not sure that's a lock, but the more I start to talk to people in the league, and Derek Carr may not be a lock himself to be in New Orleans forever for another year, that pick is fascinating. Okay?
Yeah.
So there's a lot to unpack here, but you nailed it. The whole purpose of having this conversation is if you start to read the tea leaves like we did with the Jets and with the Raiders and the moves they made, and you start to look at the Kenny Pickett decision, you say, how in the world could Kenny Pickett matter to when? Because you nailed it, Muench. They're scared to death. The reports early on were Tennessee's going to pass. They've got 4 players. They're going to do their due diligence on Cam and Shedeur. But everyone in the league was like, yeah, but it's going to be Abdul, or they're not a quarterback away. That's what everyone was telling me.
Right.
They're not a quarterback away. They kind of know it. Past punt on this year, bring in a veteran. Here we are now, okay? Wednesday night. You're probably viewing this or watching this on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever else you get your podcasts. We appreciate your support. Please click it. Click the buttons. You're probably watching it on Thursday morning. But here we are now on Wednesday night of free agency, March 12th. And the only thing that Tennessee has done of significance, not been a quarterback, offensive line. Kevin Zeitler just signed about 45 minutes ago before we're taping this on Wednesday night, right? They brought in Dan Moore to be their starting left tackle. You got Latham kicking out to right tackle. People really believe he's gonna flourish in that role and is an ascending player. Skoronski, former first-round pick guard. Cushenberry center. That offensive line's set.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to be great, but it's set, and it's an upgrade over last year, and it just reeks of an organization that's trying to prepare itself to bring in a rookie quarterback and let Cam Ward be that guy.
Yeah. Can I address something about Sanders really quickly?
Please.
I think people who have watched this, who have listened to us, I know they've heard me say at times over the course of the season that I thought Shedeur was the best quarterback in this draft. And I did at the time. I watched his Jackson State tape. I watched his Colorado tape last year. I watched every throw this year. I want to just be clear that consistently we have said that he's one of the top quarterbacks in this class, but he wouldn't have been one of the top 4 or 5 drafted last year. And it's important to keep that in perspective. And why? Because the margin for error was not the same for a Caleb Williams coming into this year. He just didn't have that kind of ability and that kind of tape coming into the year. And then he just did not have great tape down the stretch. He did not play great. I don't care what the numbers say. Throw on the tape because the completion percentage looks great, but dig a little bit deeper and look at the average depth of target. Look at his downfield throwing. It just was not that good. And yeah, it does get messy because the supporting cast is not great. He's getting hit a lot. I understand all of that, but the margins were not big enough for him not to have a great finish to the year, and he didn't. And that's why we're talking about him falling in the first round. No one's saying he's not a first-round pick. No one's saying he's not a good quarterback prospect. No one's saying any of that. The problem is the tape wasn't great at the end, and he didn't have a big margin for error going into it.
Shedeur can succeed as a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Absolutely.
I promise you. He's the best pure passer in this class when he's on rhythm, when he's protected. And he wasn't those things an awful lot. And the protection was out of his control. The on rhythm stuff was sometimes on him.
Agreed.
Because I mean, I could pull up a clip reel right now and I could patch them together and hit the red flags on our tape and create a reel that I email to you, and you could watch 30, 40 plays that I come across just going through where he's passing up easy cash to rob the bank. That can be coached out of him. He can play in rhythm. Plenty of guys, Lamar improved on that. Patrick Mahomes improved greatly on that. A lot of guys have. I'm not saying that that's the problem. The problem is he's gotten really comfortable with extending right, extending left. And also the scariest part is the drifting back.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Williams was a phenomenal athlete. Some of the most freakish highlight stuff in college you'll ever see. Shedeur is not that guy. And Caleb had a rocky rookie season. Now, what's Ben Johnson going to come do? He's going to clean it up. He's going to tighten things up. There's going to be quicker reads, more decisiveness, playing on schedule, simplifying things. Jared Goff wasn't the greatest quarterback in the world. Got there, they realized what are his strengths: play action, middle of the field, anticipation. And that's what they funneled the whole offense into his strengths. That's what will happen in Chicago. And we'll see if Caleb can adjust, and hopefully he can, and he turns out to be the player that we evaluated. And whether you had him 1 or 2 in that class, we all thought he's going to be great. Maybe there was 1% of people out there who didn't think that Caleb was going to be, didn't see the talent in Caleb.
Right.
But Caleb Williams had elite level talent from the arm strength, the mobility, the arm angle, all those things. Shedeur doesn't.
Right.
His talent is how quickly he processes, his God-given instincts to throw the football in terms of like anticipating the touch, the trajectory. He is a pocket passer who can dissect you.
Yeah.
He is the best pocket passer in this class.
Yeah.
When he's got some protection and they get him on rhythm and he knows where to go with the football, he's like a surgeon.
Yeah.
But that's an awful lot of things that got to be right.
It's the best way of putting it, though. When he's playing well, it's awesome to watch.
It's a thing of beauty.
He can just pick people apart. And if he's patient, he's
smarter than you. He's smarter than you in the pocket. He's smarter than you.
Without
and
question.
I love that about his game. That's why we have him as a first-round prospect. That's why we both have first-round grades on him. That's why we have him as the second-best quarterback in this class. But I do think there's a bigger gap between Cam Ward and Shedeur than there is Shedeur and Jackson Dart. And
interesting.
In my opinion, Shedeur and Tyler Shuck. I'm planting the flag. I'm there on Tyler Shuck. We'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
When we unveil this top 100. But it's fascinating to me. I think Tennessee's going to take Cam Ward at number 1. And clip that off, Eduardo, because I'm sure it'll come back to bite me when 48 hours from now Tennessee makes this deal with the Giants to trade out of that spot. I don't know anything. I'll always tell you when I know something. I'll always tell you when I don't. No one outside of that building knows. And I think
but a lot of smoke. A lot of smoke.
Yeah, but I think there are people in that building who are still saying, let's go through our process. Football people are funny, man. Like, and I get it. The older I get, the more I'm like that. Like, I got a process. And until I'm done with that process, and that process has worked in the past. Right?
Yeah.
You got some pretty smart people at the top, of head coach, general manager, who have drafted some pretty good players. Been part of like the Joe Burrow stuff. There's a process you go through. And so they're not done with it. I think they all know.
Right.
But they don't want to, they're trying not to lie to themselves, and they're trying not to, but I think they all know.
It's like,
and I think Cam Ward's going to be the pick.
It's like vetting your vice president. You know who you want. Like, as long as everything checks out, you know who you're going with. You know what I mean? You might vet 5 of them, but you know who your guy is, unless you find.
But occasionally, yeah. And we're not saying there ain't a. And let me say this for Cam Ward, for people who don't know, he's an all-time dog.
Right.
Everyone I talk to. Yeah. He lives for ball, competitive as like son of a bitch, like, and will keep everyone in line, demanding of his teammates. Change that culture was not easy to change in Miami. They'd done a lot of losing and middling for a long time. He walked in from Washington State and grabbed that program by the neck and threw it against the wall and said, "This is how we're going to do it." He couldn't play defense. Yeah, good luck, Carson Beck.
I'm just saying.
But anyway.
All right, you told me to keep it moving, and I'm getting you off track now. Let's go.
35 minutes in, haven't even brought up the top 100. But this quarterback stuff is fascinating. Tennessee addresses its offensive line. Cleveland sitting in there too. Now they're making moves that are weird at quarterback. Kenny Pickett's just weird.
It is.
Even Schefter had to kind of explain it, probably after getting off the phone with Stefanski or Andrew Berry to try to explain it.
Yeah.
It's like it could just be a backup, could be a good backup, and maybe you catch lightning in a bottle, and maybe you develop it. And he's almost like explaining it away. But it won't surprise me at all if we see Kirk or Russell wind up in Cleveland, and that's them saying we submit. If Tennessee wants them, ain't nothing we can do about it.
Right.
Yeah. And then there's the Giants. I mean, seriously, man.
Talk about being a bad spot.
Bridesmaid, not the bride, and a lot of this stuff.
So close.
Bunch of bridesmaid stuff. But if it's not Shedeur at 3, then it gets fascinating. If it is Shedeur at 3, is it a move out of desperation?
I don't think so, man. I mean, we just talked about. Look, Shedeur could be great. I don't think I don't know. It's tough.
Would you draft Shedeur at 3 if you're the Giants and you're the general manager and you are in perfectly good standing? It's your first or second year. No problems. You got 4 years left on your contract.
I would. And here's the thing that we keep doing.
Okay.
And it's just natural to do this. Would I want to trade back and then try to get him a little bit later? Would I try to do all those things?
You can't do that.
Right. It's not happening. It is what it is. We are living in the shadow of what might be one of the greatest, if not the greatest, quarterback draft classes in the history of the draft. Do you think that's true? I mean, it's possible.
I think we're heading in a direction where that could be possible. Where it's we look back and we talk about like the Marino. What was it, 83?
Yeah,
where
great class.
Where it could wind up being held in that sort of regard. If Caleb improves with a new group, Jaden continues on this trajectory. Drake builds off of what was a lot of impressive stuff, but wasn't complete. Bo continues to progress. Penix, we saw a little bit. And if JJ comes out and plays the way he's supposed to with an offensive coaching staff and a supporting cast that is going to really put some nice training wheels on him. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, look, there have been a lot of bad quarterbacks drafted early. And I think that I just pulled it up because I wanted to look at it. Trey Lance went 3rd overall. And I wasn't comfortable with that pick then. And I understood what they saw in terms of his ability. But Trey Lance was the 3rd overall pick in the draft. I mean, when you're trying to find a quarterback, you got to take him early. And I'm more comfortable with taking Shedeur Sanders that early in the draft than I would have been with Trey Lance, only because Trey Lance didn't have a lot of experience. It was a very interesting situation for him. So to me, I get it. I wish that I could have taken Drake May here. I wish that Cam Ward was going to fall to me. Those things aren't going to happen. And if I'm Brian Daboll, I'm thinking to myself, there's enough here that I can work with and that I can develop.
Here's where I am on it. And I do like Shedeur. And I do think if you protect him properly and you have the right system, he can be effective. I truly do. This is not a Shedeur bashing thing at all. I just see, like we always talk about, going the general manager and how's he going to succeed? How's he going to fail?
Right.
And I see a couple of things that I wish like I didn't have to present in the how could it not go well?
What do you do
if the Giants?
Okay, go ahead. What are you going to do if you can't get him?
Here's a scenario I would like to pitch to you, and it's a perfect transition into my top 100.
Here we go.
I've got Jackson Dart and Tyler Shuck in my top 32 still. 31 and 32. Okay. I would much rather a scenario in which I am able to get, because one's going to be Cam Ward 2 is probably going to be Travis Hunter.
That's what I'm thinking in this scenario. Yep.
Because you just re-signed Myles Garrett.
Right. It could still be Carter because he's that good, but I think it's Hunter.
I'd rather get Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter and Jackson Dart or Tyler Shuck.
Yeah, they're there.
I'm picking at 35 if I'm the Giants. No, 34. I've got the second pick in the second round.
Right.
So then I move back up and go get Shuck. I go get Dart, or I stick at 34, and there's a really good chance I'm getting Shuck. Although I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see because everyone in the league is saying second.
If you don't move up, you're not sleeping Thursday night. I mean, you're not sleeping Thursday night, and I'm telling you right now, Thursday is going to be a long night for you, man, because you don't know who else is going to try and do that too. Is there another team that's going to try and move up? What are the Saints going to do? Like
because the Browns are sitting there at 33, and we're saying they don't have an answer. The Giants are sitting there. Tennessee will have gotten their guy. The Raiders have a 34 turning 35-year-old quarterback in Geno who are dangerous, but a lot of people in the league think that that's going to be Will Howard, maybe in the third. The Saints are at 4. The Saints are at 40. So yeah.
And maybe Pittsburgh takes one at 21.
And Pittsburgh's in the market, depending on how this all shakes out.
I'm just saying, if you're the Giants,
I think regardless, I'd rather get Tyler Shuck in the second round if you promise me I'm getting Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. And I just look at the list, baby. Round 2, like we've had plenty of round 2 quarterbacks. You go back like in the beginning of time, Jaws, Randall Cunningham, Boomer Esiason, Andy Dalton,
Jalen Hurts just won the Super Bowl.
Derek Carr, Geno Smith, Jalen Hurts. Oh, Brett Favre. What's up?
But listen, man, you are. That's not a lock. So when you pass on Sanders, you're not saying, "Oh, listen, we're going to get one of these guys here. We're going to get Carter or we're going to get Hunter, and then we're going to go get Shuck and we're going to get Dart." Well, when you make that pick, that third pick, you're not a lock to get either one of those guys. So let's say both those guys are off the board. Now, let me put you in this scenario. Here we go. I was supposed to move it along. Now we're in a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Let me put you in that scenario.
You can read my top 100.
You take Hunter.
Go to the McShay report.
You take Hunter or Carter, and then you're getting where you think you're going to get Shuck or Shuck or Dart, and they're gone. What's your move now, Ace? What do you do?
Derek Carr, June 1st.
You hope.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
I mean, it's a gamble, man. It's a real gamble because we know these quarterbacks get pushed up all the time, and I think Shuck and Dart are second round guys too. I do, but they're going to end. And you just said Dart's definitely going in the first round. All these quarterbacks
definitely strong. I will be very, very surprised if the 32nd pick is made on Thursday night and Jackson Dart's not one of them.
That doesn't shock.
I will be.
Does not shock me at all. So, I mean, you're gambling, man.
It's I mean, this is going to be fun.
Especially with here's something else. These are all these I'm in the weeds. The Patriots just went out and signed Josh Dobbs. Are you? Hey, Joe Milton looked pretty good against the Bills. I know he's inconsistent, but he's a talented guy. Am I floating a 7th round pick to the Patriots for Joe Milton to come into the building and see what we can do with him? I really kind of liked him coming out of college. We just, just thought you don't think you think you're gonna have to give up more than a 7th?
I don't know. I haven't studied the Joe Milton market, but yeah, I would guess you'd have to give up like
whatever it is. Are you at least calling?
Maybe 4th, 5th, something like that.
Are you calling Foxborough and saying, hey, is he available? Is he a player that we would look into? Jalen Milroe, fascinated about where he's going to go. Someone's going to fall in love with that skill set.
Oh, I promise you.
There are so many wild cards here. So many wild cards. And meanwhile, Aaron might still be doing ayahuasca or whatever that thing is that he does, and maybe not made a decision. Yeah, maybe he hasn't made a decision yet. It is wild, this quarterback situation.
I mentioned that they're 31 and 32, Dart and Shuck respectively. I'm going to catch a lot of grief for it, and I'm okay with it. In 3 years from now, most people won't even remember the conversation. The ones that do will come back and applaud me for sticking my neck on the line. Or they'll think I'm a laughingstock, but that, I'm used to that. Let's get into this top 32. Tuck, roll the top 15, please. Let's take a look at it. Here's what I want to do. I will say this: there are 6 quarterbacks mentioned in the top 100. We don't have to get to every position. I'm sure as shit not going to sit here and read off 100 names. And it's not because I'm trying to peddle $4 from you for the McShay report that you can Google and click and subscribe and grab. At least I'm not talking about the schedule, right?
Here we go.
Mock drafts next Thursday. But I can tell you I've got 6 quarterbacks in the top 100, okay? And Dart and Shuck are 3 and 4 behind the obvious, and Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, we just talked an awful lot about. Also in there, after those 4, 2 other quarterbacks, Jalen Milroe, you just mentioned. I put him in. I'm curious to get your take. I've got him in at 76. It seems reasonable. It's about mid-third round. I can't stand a lot of things I saw on tape last year. I think he's swimming in it mentally sometimes. I think he showed flashes early in the season. I thought the Wisconsin game showed a lot of good things. The first half of Georgia was awesome. On designed runs, he's an absolute truck and a burner. But scramble runs, he's not nearly as effective. It's the weirdest phenomenon. Here's another really weird phenomenon with him. Most beautiful deep ball of all the quarterbacks in this class. The least accurate within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage in this class.
Yeah, I feel like he really struggles with like layered throws over the middle. There's some concerns.
Major concerns. My man needs time. I think part of his accuracy problems, Jalen Milroe, is I think it's the game's going too fast. I think it affects his feet. I think he's right. Mm-hmm. His brain's, you can see his brain, and we saw it at the Senior Bowl too. That can be corrected. He's got to get to a place and have some time to develop. Give him 2 years. Make him understand exactly where he's going with the ball, what to read, what he's looking at, and all of those sorts of things. Get him out of the freaking weight room too, please. I said it. I'm telling you. And it's funny. It's funny, except I said the same thing about Brady Quinn. I said the same thing about
remember Brady Quinn? That build?
Yes. And his sister trying to slap me in the red carpet of the ESPYs. I remember that too. That was a fun few years with the Notre Dame quarterbacks. With Kuiper,
Jimmy Clausen, yeah.
Just loves Notre Dame quarterback. Might have had something to do with the agent too, by the way, Mel. I'm not ignorant.
Here we go.
15 years later. But my point is, all joking aside, he's got to show the best passers, the best quarterbacks in the league are not bodybuilders. Will Levis has the same problem. Didn't change.
Yeah.
Okay. Tim Tebow, same problem. They're muscle heads. They love the weight room.
Yeah.
And they're all physical. They're all tough guys. And Levis loves to run and, lower his shoulder. Tebow was a fullback playing quarterback. One of the best college players I've ever seen in my life, just not cut out to be an NFL quarterback. Part of the reason was too bulked up, doesn't have touch and finesse. Jalen's got to learn from those guys. And I promise you, this is not me talking. If Jalen happens to be listening or watching or someone in his camp, this is NFL decision makers talking. You got to cut out the weights. You got to get with flexibility. You've got to work to become more accurate as a passer. And he'll do that. He'll get in the right program and he'll do that. And you're going to bet on the beautiful deep ball, the strong arm, the rare athletic traits. And I think 76 is an appropriate spot for him.
I think that's totally fair. I'm buying that lottery ticket earlier than that, but I think it's fair in terms of ranking him against the other players in the class, is putting him in that range.
You're taking the under on FanDuel.
Why? What's the under? What is it?
I don't know on Moro. Speaking of FanDuel, I wanted to get to this. We'll keep coming back to my top 100. And again, it's on the McShay report. You can go read the whole thing, and we've got a bunch of notes, guys who are rising, guys who are falling, and we will get to a little bit more here in the next 10 or so minutes. But there we go.
Yep.
You remember, and we've got it. Tucker, would you remind me, please? Mr. Tuckbomb with all the great news. Would you please remind me, breaking all those reports? We've got to do a tracker on this. I want to show, look at that number, Muench. It was neck and neck. Shedeur was actually, he had better odds to be the number one overall pick, what, a month or so ago? 2 months, definitely. Then it got like neck and neck. Then Cam became, more likely. Now Shedeur Sanders, if you're not watching, I'll rip through these, but Shedeur Sanders is plus 2,600 to be the number one overall pick compared to Cam Ward. And it's not shocking because it's not the conversation. Shedeur Sanders is not going number one. FanDuel isn't an empire because it makes dumb decisions and puts on bad odds. They don't do it. That's why every time they give me some free bucks to work with, I wind up blowing it and a lot more of my own personal money. I mean, they're good at what they do. Cam Ward is minus 220. Abdul Carter's now up to plus 170.
Yep.
That's a big swing, man.
Yep. Someone knows something we don't know.
Travis Hunter was plus 1,700. So that's fascinating. As we get closer, there will be some player props, and we'll have a lot of fun with it. Like I have a blast looking at them. I've never bet on them. I've made a lot of friends, not rich because you can only bet so much, but I've made a lot of friends some good money over the years, and we're going to try to cash in this year. All right, so the top 100. We talked about the top 15. Tuck, throw that back up, please. I think when I look at it, I'm interested to get your opinion. Abdul Carter's obvious at 1. Travis Hunter's obvious at 2 for me, at least. Mason Graham, I've kind of had for a long, long time at that number 3 spot. That's the elite tier for me, 94 and 95 grades. Just a tiny notch below, and you've already made your argument for Tyler Warren, and that's fine, but just a tiny notch below in that tier 2, which is still like rare air, elite players, just not the elite of the elite. Ashton Ginty, Tyler Warren, Cam Ward. All in that tier, followed by Jalen Walker. You might like this, Muench. Colston Loveland. He's one of the best 8 players in this draft. He's going to make an absolute impact. He is going to be a dynamic difference maker at tight end in the NFL, and he's going to do it right away. This dude is ready. Holding tight on Jahdae Barron, even though a lot of people seem like they're cooling. Armand Membu, as I mentioned briefly the other day, is OT1, if you will, in this class, ahead of Will Campbell. But Will Campbell, I did not kill. I went back and looked. There are 2 starters in the NFL at tackle with 30 in the 32-inch range. A couple more just north of 33. I think he can play tackle. I don't disagree with your assessment that it might not be a perfect move into guard, but I hesitate enough. And Membu backed up his really damn good tape with numbers that are sensational. 6'4" and 1/4, 332 pounds, Muench. This is why Membu's number 1.
Right.
Because the tape was really good and the workout numbers exceeded the tape. His arms aren't the longest either, but well within the range, 33 and a half inches. You'd like 34 plus, but there are a lot of guys that have 30 in the 33 and a half range that have had great careers. He was one of 5 guys, Muench. I went back and looked at this. One of 5 guys in the entire offensive line group that ran a sub 5-second 40-yard dash. He ran a 4.91. He did that
ridiculous.
At 332 pounds.
Yeah.
Also had the 4th best vertical and the best broad jump.
I think he had the 2nd best bench too. I mean, he had a day. I mean, he had a workout.
He had a day.
Yeah.
So that's where I am in the top 10. Omari and Hampton is just behind those guys. I'm a huge Omari and Hampton guy if you're just tuning in. Campbell right behind Hampton. Jihad Campbell, the Alabama linebacker. We're now into that third tier. Will Campbell, Jihad Campbell, Shamar Stewart, Matthew Golden. Stewart, the edge from A&M. Golden, the wide receiver from Texas. That's my top 15. They're all in that third tier of player. What stands out to you, brother?
A bunch. You didn't kill Will Campbell. You put him at 12. I struggle with the player. I told everyone that he scares me. But I don't hate it because the tape is good enough for him to be, a first round player. Not to put you on the spot. Do you remember the names of the two starters who were at offensive tackle?
I don't.
Yeah.
I can pull it up.
We should figure that out because, it's one thing to be a starter in the league, and then it's another thing to be a guy that's worth a first round pick that early in the first round with that arm length. It still scares me. I still think it shows up on tape at times. So that one's, that one's interesting to me. I love Loveland too. I still think that's high because of what he is as a tight end, and I don't think he's Brock Bowers. He's not Brock Bowers, so I think he should go a little later than that, to be honest with you. Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan, you have at not anywhere near the top 25.
Luke Gadecki is one of them for the Buccaneers. 32 and a quarter.
Are you spending an early first round pick on that kind of a player? But Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan.
Caleb McGarry was a first round pick. For the Falcons. He's a starter at right tackle. No starters at left. Bernard Ryman. I forgot about that. Yeah, Bernard Ryman. Central Michigan, right?
Yep.
For the Colts. Third round pick. But he fell to the third round.
Yeah.
So McGarry's the only one who was a first round draft pick who's a starting tackle in the league with sub 33-inch arms.
Yeah, it's still concerning for me. I know he's a good player, man. I'm not trying to bash him. He's a good player. I just don't know. I don't know what to do with him. And 12 might be a little early for me. And then Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan. Man, that's so tough. Banged up this year, shoulder, turf toe. Now he's got a hamstring injury. He's not going to run at his pro day. Maybe do a private workout. But I get it. He's a gambler, man. He's a gambler with short arms, which is tough to be. He will jump routes, get caught out of position, and he's in trouble. But he's a gambler that also returned 3 interceptions for touchdowns, had 9 picks, and excels in off coverage. The way he reads the quarterback, gets his eyes on the receiver, and breaks on balls is elite. There's something else here that I really I've been dying to get into with you a little bit deeper, so I hope it's all right. You have a very odd affection for slot receivers early. Emeka Egbuka, slot receiver. Let's put him, and I know other people have done this. I know him and it's not just you. We're going to put him.
But Jackson Smith and Jigba was a slot receiver. Did you see what he did for Seattle last year?
We'll see, man. We'll see. Listen, I think Egbuka, I want to see him run. I don't
Lad
know.
McConkey was a slot receiver. Did you see what he did as a rookie?
Lad McConkey
but a lot of people
way more than Egbuka does. And by the way, he didn't have Jeremiah Smith running by him on the outside, and he didn't have Chip Kelly playing games in terms of misdirection, motion, alignment. Chip Kelly did so much for that kid. It's crazy, which he should have. He made the most of the skill set.
Fucking hate Emeka Egbuka. Have you ever talked to anyone about Emeka Egbuka?
First of all, he's an outstanding individual, hard worker. The numbers at Ohio State,
beyond
crazy numbers at Ohio State. I get it all. Love him in the second round. Love slot receivers in the second round.
Well, you ain't getting them, son.
Great. I'll get someone else. If I get Jalen Noel instead, who, by the way, you have at 35 as a slot receiver. I know he's an outstanding workout. Again,
I was pissed off that I had to put him at 35.
I know. I looked at it. I was like, he probably didn't want to put him that low. Again, slot receiver. Luther Burden, I think you have a little bit lower. I have the same concerns with Luther Burden that
Let me tell you about when you say slot receiver. Yeah, I got it. But we're rolling out 3 and 4 receivers in the NFL almost every single day.
Correct.
And so my slot receiver is 5'10" and a quarter, 194 pounds, built tough and sturdy.
Yep.
He runs this is Jalen Noel, runs a 4.39. His tape
awesome.
His tape is pristine.
Awesome.
His routes, his understanding of zone, his ability to uncover with his feet.
Give me one.
Doesn't need to be big and physical. He does it all the time. Best vertical jump in the entire freaking combine for wide receivers, 41.5 inches. Best broad jump, of all the wide receivers, 11 foot 2 inches.
We all know. You've
And
said
his tape is sensational.
You've probably
I hate you, Muench.
How many
I
days has it
can't
been since the
stand you.
combine? Because I've heard those numbers every day.
Oh, it took 4
Every
months for
day
you
I
to
hear
get
those
under my
numbers.
skin.
By the way, I like them.
Now it feels comfortable.
I like them. A little bit farther down the board, I like them.
Well, that's my problem with you people.
You people. Would you take, let me tell you something. All the outside, look who leads the league in receiving every year. Who are the top 10 receivers?
I'm not
How many
talking
of them
about
are
a
slot
5'7",
guys?
5'8", tiny. I'm not talking about Tez. I'm not talking about Tez Johnson.
You're talking about guys who are
5'10" and change.
6 foot 195. That's what Burden and Egbuka are. Noel's a little bit smaller. I get it.
Yes, Noel's a little smaller.
I understand it. Slot receivers you can find later on in the draft. Slot receivers you can get other places. I want a guy who can win on the outside.
Not that guy.
What guy?
You can't. Jalen Noel.
I don't know, man. I mean, I love Jalen McMillan last year out of Washington. He went, I think, in the second round, and he was really good for Tampa this year. That's the kind of player you're looking at.
But this is my problem with you people. Go back. Here's your homework. Because you got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday until we got a show on Monday.
Because I've already looked into this a little bit. Go ahead. Lad McConkey played on the outside. He's built the same way. He played on the outside.
Forget the slot thing for a minute. Because Emeka Egbuka is. I want you to do a new homework assignment.
Okay, here we go.
Mr. Lazy, don't want to do more homework. I want you to go and look at how many exceptional wide receivers in the NFL came from the second round because of you people.
I get it.
This is what happens. You find he doesn't look like Megatron. He doesn't have four. And also when you're doing this, when you're going through draft history and going through our database and you're ripping through, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I also want you to look at how many people who either looked the part,
what I'm saying,
or blazed a beautiful number. Darius Hayward Bay comes to mind, and there's a dozen other of them.
Right.
That go in the first round, top 10 picks. Who did the Bengals draft that year? It doesn't matter. My point is they don't meet this measurable thing. And I watched the tape. I'm like, that guy's better than that guy. But that guy goes in the second round. Now, DK and
Jamar
AJ Brown were dipped.
I mean, T. Higgins, like guys who can win on the outside. I kind of like those guys. Mike Evans.
When you're doing your homework assignment, I want you to find two things for Monday, and I'm coming back to you.
Yep.
Two things. Fine. One, how many receivers checked the box or had an exceptional workout thing, whether it was the height and length and body or the speed, and were drafted too early in the first round and sucked. And then how many receivers went in the second round because they didn't check one of those boxes?
Two things.
And have been phenomenal.
Two things I'm going to come back at you with. If there are a lot of busts like that, and I think there are, I think you'll be right. Why do teams keep taking chances on those kind of players? Because they are difference makers. Because when you can find that guy who wins on the outside.
But they're not if they can't catch the ball or get open.
I understand you miss. A lot. I get it. But if you find that guy who's got that size and speed who can win on the outside. Listen, Trey Harris is about 5 pounds heavier. Ran a lot slower. But wins on the outside, man. Give me Trey Harris. Wins on the outside.
In the second round.
Ahead of Egbuka. Yes. I want to see him run,
4.52.
You always, by the way, you're always saying, why didn't this guy run at the combine? He's hiding. No, Egbuka's supposedly going to run.
No, he's not hiding. He played a national championship and won it like 8 days earlier.
Fine. I want to see the 40 schedule. Time. Supposedly he's going to run in the low 4.4s. I'm telling you right now, he's not a burner. Yeah,
he will. He's an Ohio State wide receiver. Where do you think he's going to roll out a 4.5 with a piano on his back? All right, a couple other things.
I want to see it.
This feels like home. You're doing the best version of you, pissing me off. A couple guys that jumped up in the rankings.
By the way, everyone else has Egbuka in their first round too. Just saying.
Oh, I know. I don't care about everyone else. Maxwell Hairston talking to guys in the league. He's going in the first round. Got him up to number 24 in the rankings. I just want to recap this for you. Everyone knows he ran a 4.28 fastest 40 time. His tape's awesome. He's a ball hawk.
He moves different.
When I talk to people in the league, it's not many guys can do both at a really high level. This guy can, man and zone coverage. But I had to go back and look at the complete picture real quickly. Second best vertical jump, 39.5. So you talk about a shorter guy who's got to be able to climb the ladder and compete for the football, and he does. Broad jump, 10.9. Lower body explosiveness, third best in the combine of cornerbacks. Fastest of all the defensive backs, safeties and corners, max top speed, 24.25. You ready for this? The second best was 23.9.
Wow.
So almost a half a mile an hour difference.
He moves different, man.
Darian Porter, who's an absolute burner. The hell is going on at Iowa State, by the way? The speed on the perimeter. Couple other guys. Donovan Ezeraku.
Yeah,
your
my
boy.
Guy. Yeah, you moved him up.
Sitting here complaining. Sitting here doing all this, all the negative stuff. I put your BC edge in the top 30. Only sub 7-second 3-cone of all the edges.
I saw that.
And that's important for that position.
Yeah.
The body control, the change of direction, the start.
What you see on tape.
Exactly. Combine that with a short shuttle of time, like a wide receiver, 4.19. Combine that with 34-inch arms, and combine that with the production, 16.5 sacks last year. That's why he's getting bumped up into round 1.
Love it.
Okay.
All right. I'm not done with you. I have one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
You keep taking slot receivers in the first round, okay? And I'll get Josh Simmons from Ohio State, the offense. So just so everyone knows, I don't hate Ohio State players. I'll take Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle, in the second round, who you have 38th overall. I'm so worked up I can't even breathe. How? Because he has short arms? Because he has 33-inch arms? Is that the issue? I don't get it. He can play on the right or the left. You get potentially a starting tackle that late in the draft. I get him dropping him a little bit. You want to drop him a little bit? He's coming off a knee injury.
Who for two things.
Yep.
The talent is absolutely there. I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have it, considering the information I have, and that's part of it. Are you getting a guy who's mature enough to come in and handle his business? And there's concerns about that. Just going to be up front and straight, and that's what I'm hearing. And I don't like sharing, but there's some concern with that stuff. Okay, that's number one. Number two is he had this great stretch run early on in the season that got everyone worked up. Everyone worked up about him as a first round pick, and he's got first round talent. Who was that against?
Well, he did Mike Green, but he didn't get much reps. They played Marshall early in the year. I get it.
I'm glad you brought that up. Two
reps.
Snaps.
Mm-hmm.
2 reps against Mike Green.
Locked him
so
down.
Everyone's like, well, they played Marshall, but they had Mike Green. Okay.
Yeah.
Answer my question. Who did he play against?
Was he not
Iowa?
Was he not Ohio State the year before? Did I not watch the 2023 tape? You know I did. Dude,
yeah.
Listen, he
wasn't the player that he was early in the season when all of a sudden it's like, oh, he's a first rounder. I'm just saying.
I forgot teams don't draft developmental franchise
they
left tackles
do
in the first
when
round.
They're dogs and they're certain that they're going to come in and give back what's been given to them. Consistency, effort, killer mentality, like all the time. I'm not saying he's not going to. I'm saying there are concerns, and that's why he has fallen a little bit. I love you, Muench.
Criminal.
This is fun. This feels like a hotel room in Indianapolis, Mobile, Alabama, yelling and screaming. You're ordering crazy stuff from room service. The room
that happened
stinks.
Once.
No, this feels right. I'm glad we are now officially in draft form because you are agitating me.
Face is red.
But in a very good way. Yeah, I feel like I'm red too. All right. This is fun. Hey, mock draft. coming next Thursday. I'm not going to do a whole bunch of scheduling stuff here. Top 100 is out right now. Go get it. Would you please? Google the McShay Report, click subscribe. Then they're going to ask you, because this one is paid, they're going to ask you for $4.
Or you double down.
Or you double down for 36. Please help us, support us. And we appreciate it. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate you watching everywhere you watch and or get your podcasts. We will be back on Mondays and Thursdays. I'm not going to do the calendar stuff, but we got an awesome draft week lined up. We'll share it at some point. I'll make Muench do it, so you stop yelling at me. But thank you for watching. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for listening. We'll see you on Monday. Have fun. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino. Or 18 plus and present in D.C. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.